it's a good thing that Ron DeSantis is not going to be president, and that Vivek Ramaswamy has outshone him.
And Vivek Ramaswamy will also not be president. And I've said before, I'll say it again, on behalf of all South Asians, as the cultural ambassador appointed to this role by myself, we have cut Vivek Ramaswamy and dropped him. Do not pick him up off of waivers along with Nikki Haley and Bobby Jindal. You have been warned. He's
Bobby,
not part of our team.
Yeah. Where's Bobby at, man? No, there was a very fun moment to maybe pivot into the GOP debate a little bit. And fun, I mean, horrific, where it was Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley arguing who was a better friend to Israel. And you're just like, oh God. Like, who's doing like more militaristic foreign policy? Who's taking more money? Who loves Israel harder? Just, again, what did you call Nikki Haley? You got into a lot of hot water for.
I think I called her a Trojan horse and a Manchurian candidate for white supremacy.
Yes.
And then I remember all of our colleagues, I don't know if they consider us colleagues, did finger wagging, and Jake Tapper held an entire panel on my comments without inviting me, which is, he knows my number, didn't invite me. And me, Asha Rangappa, and Mehdi Hassan, 3 South Asians on his show, spent a good 8-9 minutes, Francesca. Like, I led with that. And I said some funny stuff, but then it was actually a substantive conversation as to her record, her rhetoric, her policy, where she has caped for white supremacy her entire life and used xenophobic anti-immigrant policies, which ultimately I said made her a hypocrite and made her this token for a right-wing movement in which Ann Coulter that same week told her to go back to where she came from. And I said, no one's concentrating on Ann Coulter telling Nikki Haley to go back to her country, a U.S. citizen, but here I am calling her these terms, but then we back up with her own policy, and I'm the bad guy and like, oh, you should be civil. And this double standard to coddle, infantilize, and rationalize white rage, which goes back, it's all connected to the Civil War, where now it's become a lost cause, and we had to, make excuses. Jimmy Carter had to go there and say, well, Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee, they're patriotic Americans. And I'm like, these were, for those
they're traitors.
Let me say this real quick. If you sit there and you roll your eyes and go, oh, white privilege, all these darkies talking about white privilege. Here's one example of white privilege. In order for me and Francesca to have statues, if we were racist traitors to this country, enslaved people, and lost, these were losers, okay? Yeah. And now they have statues literally for these people. Like, can you fathom what you and I would have to do to have statues be made for us?
I mean, there will be a Clarence Thomas statue. But again, like, speaking of the Manchurian candidate for white supremacy, that's how you get it. There will be a statue to Donald Trump, a traitorous loser. I'm sure it'll, and everyone will keep on sort of fixing like a little baby carrot to like the crotch, and then someone will take that away, and then we'll put it back, and it'll be a whole thing. But no, I think it is very telling also when you talk about this instance of anti-Black, violence, that you have 2 Asian Americans trying to vie for, a white supremacist vote, a Republican vote, a conservative vote, on the idea that they will never remind you, even when they say like, oh, well, my parents were immigrants, right? And that's even a little bit on the sort of iffy as to whether they should even say that, because it reminds people that they're brown. But they are really trying to vie for the hearts of these voters who really will never have no interest in them, in my opinion, and to tell you and show you how hard Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to say that he is the champion of basically like the white race, because he's like, reverse racism is racism. Here was his closing statement from the GOP debate last Wednesday.
God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4.
I'm just taking it to the bing bing. I didn't get what the 4th branch of government. Does he mean the media?
Anti-woke capitalism, because let's not forget that he is the alleged CEO of the anti-woke. Look, as a Desi kid, I tweeted this, and a lot of Desis, South Asians responded. We all knew a Vivek growing up. All Desi kids knew a Vivek growing up.
Really? Knew a Vivek or him specifically?
He's a dime a dozen Desi, and a dime a dozen Desi. He's like a suburban wealthy kid who tried really hard his whole life to covet the love and validation of people who would never really appreciate him or want him, right? He wanted the cutest girls. He wanted to be popular, even though he knew he was a dork. He's like, I'm going to show you. And he succeeded, and he had a leg up. He had money and he had wealth, and he got it. But he's never truly beloved, Francesca. And that's the tragedy. And I think that's what I've always said, even to Nikki. They'll never truly love you. Because I always want to remind people, according to a book that I believe was written by Glasser and Peter Baker, when they were discussing VP candidates for Donald Trump, they mentioned Nikki Haley. And he said, she has the wrong complexion.
Oof.
And
this was Trump, or this was another author?
This was Trump. And so here's Vivek dancing like a clown and a monkey, doing his Eminem impression to the point where Eminem is like, yo, stop.
Yeah, please stop.
Literally doing a 180 on who he is, because this is not who he is. All the data shows that he's probably not even Republican, hasn't voted for Republican in years. And I always want to tell him, wait till they find out that you're a Hindu. And if you think they're going to love you, they're not. And if they do love you, it's going to be in the Clarence Thomas role, where even when they interviewed Ginny Thomas's sister, they said, oh, we were surprised that he, if you go read the article on this, we were surprised that he wasn't like the others. Translation, he was one of the good ones. We'll tolerate him. He'll be our token, the useful idiot.
Right, exactly. And yet, and it's fitting that also Ramaswamy this week, got mad at Ayanna Pressley for some very old comment that she made, still incredibly relevant, which was basically, if you are a brown person in power, please represent our marginalized communities that need you and your voice. Don't just be this sort of standout, the person who's like the so-called good one, right?
The model minority.
The model minority, of course. And he, he called her the modern leader of the KKK for that. I just have to say, he's not going to be president. He's going to have a very successful podcast after all this. And he's never been a scientist, people. He is, I guess, an entrepreneur, but basically kind of a swindler. Talked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he talked up a bunch of pharma, miracle drugs that never worked out, swindled a bunch of people, including California teachers who had the retirement fund invested in the Alzheimer's drug that he was taking to market, that he took to market. He cashed out, got millions and millions of dollars. So anyway, he calls himself a scientist. He's totally not. But I will just say that phrase, the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man, sends the most chills down my spine and makes me want to become a witch tomorrow and leave my family behind, fly into the night. No, because that is fascistic. That is about control. That is what is happening around this country when it comes to reproductive rights and abortion rights, which is, let's force women into positions where they have no control over their own bodies and their own lives. And as long as we just keep control of them, I don't know what's going to happen. I say, will it grow another inch? I don't think so. Are your jobs going to come back from China? I don't think so. What the fuck happens once you control women like that? What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.